Hello friends, this video on nuclei part 24 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Please make sure that you have watched all the videos till part 23 before going ahead with part 24. Let us look at this problem now. How long can an electric lamp of 100 watts be kept glowing by fusion of 2 kgs of deuterium? So let us first write the equation for fusion of deuterium. What happens when the deuteriums fuse? They form this helium nucleus. So this is the reaction for fusion of two deuteriums. Now here in this problem it is given that mass of deuterium is 2 kgs. So how many atoms will be there in 2 kgs of deuterium? Now if you look at it, the mass number here is 2. So that means 2 grams of deuterium has 6.023 into 10 to the power 23 atoms. So therefore 2 kgs of deuterium will have 6.023 into 10 to the power 23 divided by 2 into 2 kgs. So 2 into 10 to the power 3 grams. So that is equal to 6.023 into 10 to the power 26 atoms. Right? Now if you look at this reaction, you see that 2 atoms of deuterium fuse and they produce an energy of 3.27 mega electron volts. So therefore if I want to calculate the total energy per nucleus that would be produced by these many atoms, how do I calculate? If I want to calculate total energy per nucleus that would be generated by 2 kgs of deuterium, it would be 3.27 into these many atoms, 6.023 into 10 to the power 26. Now this will be divided by 2 because here 2 atoms together form 3.27 into 3.27 mega electron volts. So here I am calculating total energy per nucleus. So this will become 3.27 divided by 2 into this total number of atoms. So this comes out to be 1.576 into 10 to the power 14 joules. How do I convert it? This was in mega electron volts. Now in order to convert the mega electron volts into joules, what do? We multiply it with 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19. So we get it in joules. Now we have to calculate the time for which the bulb will glow. Now power of the bulb is already given as 100 watts. Now power is given, energy is given. So therefore we can calculate the time, right? Because what is power? Power is nothing but energy per unit time. So therefore time will be equal to energy per unit power, that is 1.576 into 10 to the power 14 divided by 100 seconds. So this will be equal to 1.576 into 10 to the power 12 seconds. So you can convert it into years. Right? So this is the duration for which the bulb will glow. So if you look at the kind of problems which we are solving, they use all the basic rules. The relation between power and energy. First of all, you will have to find out the number of atoms that is contained in the given mass of your of the object. Like for example, your object here is deuterium. So how many atoms are present in 2 kgs of deuterium? First you calculate that. Then looking at this reaction, you can say that 1 nucleus of deuterium produces how much energy? 1 nucleus will produce 3.27 divided by 2, right? So that is produced by 1 nucleus. But you have how many atoms? You have 6 into 10 to the power 26 atoms. So you multiply this with 6 into 10 to the power 26. So you get the total energy that will be produced per nucleus. And then you know power which is given in the question, and therefore you can find out the time taken. Let us look at the 7th problem. It says, from the relation R is equal to R naught A to the power 1 by 3, where R naught is a constant and A is mass number of a nucleus, show that nuclear matter density is nearly constant. You remember this is something which we had discussed when we were discussing about nuclear radius. I told that the volume of the nucleus changes with mass number, but the density of the nucleus is independent of mass number. So here we'll try to prove this. Now, how do I calculate nuclear mass density? Like every density, how do you define density? Density is nothing but mass per unit volume. So here also it would be mass means mass of the nucleus divided by volume of the nucleus, right? So what would be mass of the nucleus? If the nucleus has mass number A, then mass of the nucleus would be equal to A, that is the mass number, into mass of each nucleon, which is m. This divided by volume of the nucleus. So volume of the nucleus will be 4 by 3 pi r cube, where r is the nuclear radius. Now from this relation we know that r is equal to r naught a to the power 1 by 3. So we can put that value instead of r. So we will write it as r naught a to the power 1 by 3 whole cube. So this becomes am divided by 4 by 3 pi r naught cube into a. So this a and a will get cancelled. So therefore we get rho is equal to 3m divided by 4 pi r naught cube. So if you look at it, r naught is a constant, m is the mass of each nucleon, which is again a constant, and a is not at all there, that is mass number is not at all there. So this shows that the nuclear mass density is independent of a, that is it is nearly constant. Let us look at the last problem of this lesson. The problem says for a positron emission from a nucleus, there is another competing process known as electron capture, where electron from an inner orbit, say the K shell, is captured by the nucleus and a neutrino is emitted. So it says that very similar to beta plus decay, there is another process known as electron capture, wherein the nucleus will try to capture an electron from one of the innermost orbits. And these two processes are kind of similar. So it says that show that if beta plus emission is energetically allowed, electron capture is necessarily allowed, but not vice versa. That means if beta plus is energetically allowed, electron capture will obviously be allowed. But if electron capture is energetically allowed, that doesn't mean that beta emission will also be allowed. So let us first of all write down the equations for both beta plus decay and electron capture. So when I talk of electron capture, as the name suggests, what happens in electron capture? The particular atom will capture one electron. So it will form a daughter nucleus whose charge, since it has taken one negative charge, therefore its atomic number will reduce. Mass number will however remain the same and a neutrino is emitted. Let us say that the Q value for this reaction is Q1. Now let us write down the expression for beta plus decay. What happens in beta plus decay? This is my parent nucleus, it forms a daughter nucleus plus a positron plus neutrino. So let us say that the Q value for this reaction is Q2. Now we will calculate, because the Q value will actually determine whether the process is energetically allowed or not. So for that we will have to calculate the values of Q1 and Q2. So let us first calculate the value for Q1. So what happens for Q1? If you look at this reaction, what is UI? That is the initial rest mass energy. UI will be equal to atomic mass of the parent nucleus minus, since we will be talking about nuclear masses, so we will subtract the mass of Z electrons from this plus the mass of one electron into C square. So what would be the final rest mass energy? That will be equal to the atomic mass of daughter nucleus minus, how many electrons are there? Z minus 1. There is no rest mass for neutrino, so we will just ignore it. So this C squared. So now we will calculate Q1 as UI minus UF, which comes out to be Q1 is equal to mx minus mass of the daughter nucleus, because the rest of the terms gets cancelled with each other. So this is the value of, this is the Q value for electron capture, right? Now let us calculate the Q value for beta plus decay. So in this case, what would be the initial rest mass energy? It would be atomic mass of the parent nucleus minus ZME into C square. What would be the final rest mass energy? That would be mass of the daughter nucleus minus Z minus 1 into ME plus ME into C square. So from this, we get this as mass of the daughter nucleus minus ZME plus 2ME C square. So therefore Q2 becomes equal to UI minus UF, that is equal to mass of the parent nucleus minus ZME minus mass of the daughter nucleus plus ZME minus 2ME into C square. So plus ZME minus ZME will get cancelled. So therefore we get Q2 is equal to mass of the parent nucleus minus mass of the daughter nucleus minus 2ME into C square. So this is the value of, right? Now looking at these values of Q2 and Q1, what can we say? We can write from equation 1 and equation 2, we can say that what is this? Mass of the parent nucleus minus mass of the daughter nucleus. This is nothing but Q1. So therefore we can say that Q2 is equal to Q1 minus 2ME into C square. So this is the relation which we see between Q2 and Q1. Now we know that for any reaction to be energetically allowed, the Q value should be greater than 0. So let us consider the first scenario. If we say that electron capture is energetically allowed, that means Q1 is greater than 0. Now what was the relation between Q2 and Q1? Q2 is equal to Q1 minus 2ME into C square. So if electron capture is energetically allowed, that means Q1 is greater than 0. So what does this mean? Electron capture is energetically allowed, right? So if Q1 is positive, that is if Q1 is greater than 0, does that mean that Q2 will always be greater than 0? No, because let us suppose the value of Q1 is 1 and the value of this entire term is 2. So Q2 can become negative also, right? So if Q1 is greater than 0, then Q2 can be greater than 0 or Q2 can be less than 0. So that means if electron capture is energetically allowed, the beta plus decay can be energetically allowed or cannot be energetically allowed as well. But if beta plus decay is energetically allowed, that means if Q2 is greater than 0, right? That means if beta plus decay is energetically allowed, in that case what happens to Q1? Q1 will be Q2 plus 2MEC square. So if Q2 is greater than 0, something plus positive will always be positive. In that case, Q1 will always be greater than 0. So that means electron capture will always be allowed. So that is why it is told that if beta plus decay is energetically allowed, then electron capture is always necessarily allowed, because if Q2 is greater than 0, Q1 has to be greater than 0. But the vice versa is not true. That means if Q1 is greater than 0, that doesn't mean that Q2 will always be greater than 0. Q2 can be greater than 0, Q2 can be less than 0. So with this, I will conclude this lesson on nuclei and hope that you have understood the concepts in this lesson. So solve more problems so that you can get your concepts even clearer. So see you all in the next lesson. Thank you. Please visit examfear.com to watch free educational videos, try free online tests, get the best quality study materials, study from the best tutors and mentors, and much more. Thank you once again.